Hey everyone, Lisel Crowley here at the Cool Tool Studio. Today I'm going to show you how to use the new EZ960 syringe with 3 different tips, 3 different ways. I'm going to show you how to use a fine tip to repair a gouge in a bezel for a stone. I'm going to show you how to use the medium tip to decorate a pendant and a pair of earrings. And I'm going to show you how to use the heavy tip along with the medium tip to create a syringe drawn pair of earrings. Let's get started. So now we're going to make the pendant and earring set, and I'm going to use this sketch as my design. And for this project, we're going to use EZ960 Sterling Silver Clay, the EZ960 syringe, and these are the tips that come with the syringe. There's a fine, a medium, and a large. For this particular project, we're going to use the medium. We want our thickness frames. We want to use a hydrator to keep the clay moist while we're working, and this hydrator is also excellent for long-term storage of the clay. We've got some water, some lubricant, Cool Slip, which is a great lubricant. I'm using this template to create my design. This is a new product. It's called the Wick Away. This is fantastic when you're working with syringe or when you're doing a lot of brush work, and you'll see how I use it as we go through the video. One of my absolute favorite metal clay tools, the Ultra Clay Pick. A nice fine point black pen, and this is a great pen for a lot of things. It's a film opaque pen, so if you like to make photopolymer plates, it's also excellent for that. And a scraper and a rolling pin. Let's get started. Before you roll your clay, it's a good idea to lightly lube your surface. And I mean lightly. So I sprayed a little bit on there. I'm rubbing most of it off onto my hands. And then I'm going to rub that onto my rolling pin. Now when I go to roll my clay, it's going to release very nicely from the work surface. Okay. I'm going to transfer this clay to a tough card, and I don't need all of it, so I'm going to cut away some of it. And I'm going to cut out both the pendant, and if I can from the one sheet, I'll cut out the earrings as well. If not, I'll just roll a sheet again. And this is all I'm going to do at this stage. I'm going to cut out my basic shapes and put them aside to dry. They have to be dried and sanded before I do the next step. So just as I've done this, I'm going to roll out the clay and cut out the smaller size for my earrings. I'm also going to cut out, this section here is actually going to be cut out. So I'm going to use the same template and orient it to the top of the piece and cut that section out. And I have a piece like that. And again, I'm going to do the same thing and make 2 of the smaller size for the earrings. I'm going to put these aside to dry. After they're dried, I'll lightly sand them, and then I'll proceed to adding my decoration with the syringe. So you can see I've already used this fine tip pen to draw my design on one earring and the pendant. And now I'm just going to show you how I draw it on the other earring. So you want to use a very light touch. You're not trying to gouge the clay at all. You're just trying to get a nice line that you can use to follow your syringe. And if the line isn't perfect, it's not that big a deal, because as you lay the syringe down, you can certainly perfect it. Okay, so there's my designs drawn on the metal clay. Now I'm actually going to use the not the fine tip, but the medium tip for this. And I'll start with the pendant. I like to lightly dampen before I attach the syringe. You want to hold the syringe in your fist with your thumb on the plunger, and you want to start your line and hold your syringe just above the surface and just follow your drawing. Sometimes it's easier to move the piece than it is to move your syringe. If it doesn't lay down exactly where you want, sometimes you can just lift it up like I just did and redo it. When you get to where you want to stop, you tap your syringe down. And it's all about firm pressure on the nozzle. I guess that's the right word. On the plunger, I should say. And keeping your tip above the surface. You don't want to touch the surface as you're laying the syringe down. If you've ever done cake decorating, you're ahead of the game. So right there, it stopped before I wanted it to. I will just restart and finish my line. And then wherever I want little dots, I'm just going to hold the syringe down, squeeze, and lift up. Okay, once I get my basics lines down, if I have to correct the curve on anything, I'll take my damp brush and I'll just gently brush it to where I want it to be. And that area where I had a stop and start, I'm going to smooth over lightly so it doesn't look like it was a mistake. You can do a lot with the brush after you get that first line down, as long as you're gentle and as long as it's damp. You don't want to ever try to do it with a dry brush. The dry brush will just gouge into your syringe. Okay, and the final step is to take some lube up your finger really well. And you just want to lightly pat all along your syringe. I'm not trying to really flatten it so much as I am wanting to make sure that it is bonded well to the background. So that's ready to go in the dehydrator or to be dried, however you like to dry your pieces. I'll do the same thing to the earrings and then we'll fire them. Sometimes I do a light sanding, but most of the time I don't really need to. We'll fire them and I'll show you the finished product. So in this project, I'm going to show you that syringe is not just for decoration or repair, but you can actually make pieces that are made specifically with the syringe. And for this, I'm going to use this template here, and I'm going to use this design that I've already created. Because I'm going to make a pair of earrings, I want to be able to make a mirror image. So by using this dense black film opaque pen to write on my paper, I can use one side for one earring and then just flip it over, and I can see through the back to use the other side for the other earring. So you want to have a template of choice. In this case, it's this teardrop template. You want the clear work surfaces. For this, I'm going to use a clear work surface, not the tough cards. We don't really need the frames, but we're going to use the syringe with the heaviest tip on it, which is the dark the olive green tip. The syringe comes with 3 tips and they each have wonderful uses. We're also going to use the medium tip, which is the light green tip, to add further embellishment to this earring. This is called the wick away, and this is a wonderful little object to have when you're doing syringe work, because you have to keep your syringe point down in water to keep the tip from drying out. But when you go to use it, you want to get rid of all that excess water, and you can just dab it on that sponge and it'll just absorb all that excess water. So that's basically what we need. Let's get started. Because I've already drawn my design, I'm ready to go. I'm just going to tape it to the back of this work surface. And I'm going to do the opposite side first. So you can see that I can see my design through there. Now I have the medium tip on the syringe right now, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to change the tip. You just unscrew and screw on the tip you want to use. And I like the fact that these tips screw on, because you know that tip's not going to come loose. And I'm also going to just dab this on the wick away because the tip has been sitting in water. So I'm going to show you the proper way to hold the syringe first. You want to hold it in your fist with your thumb on the plunger. And there's a ridge here. It's good to have your fingers on either side of the ridge. That gives you a nice stable hold on the syringe. When you start doing your design, you have the tip touching your work surface, but then you lift it up and you're laying your design down. You're not touching the work surface. And I go fairly slowly. If you go too fast, you run the risk of stretching the line. And I'm just following the outline of my design. When you get to the end, you press down. Now this didn't fit my design exactly, so I can take a damp brush and just adjust if I am gentle enough. The right brush is very important for this particular type of a project. You don't want it so stiff that it's going to gouge or change the look of your clay, but you want it firm enough that you can move the clay. So you see how I'm gently nudging that to fit the design that I've created. Okay, now I'm going to do the inner designs. I'm using the wick away, and I'm going to start at the tip of the spiral. And again, remember, you want to keep your syringe just a tad above your work surface. And then tap. Now I'm going to do the second spiral. And I want these 2 spirals to touch so that I have a nice stable piece when I'm done. Whenever you're doing a syringe-based design, you want to make sure you have good stability after it's fired. Okay. Now I'm going to switch tips. So I'm going to unscrew this tip and put the medium tip on. Screw that on. Use the wick away to dry that off. And I'm just going to draw a little fine line squiggle. That's a technical term. Right here in the middle. Okay. Now the final step that I like to do is squirt a little lube on my work surface. I want to get my finger nicely lubed, and I'm going to gently press wherever there's connections. So I make sure that there's a good contact. I'm also going to fine-tune this curve right here with my brush. Okay. So that's ready to be dried. After it's dried, it will just need a light sanding, and I'll drill a hole for my ear wire. And I'm going to do another earring, mirror image to this, and then we'll fire them and we'll have a nice finished pair of earrings. So here's one of the earrings. It's been dried. And I am going to do just a very light sanding. It doesn't really need a lot. There's a little bit of a skin here that I'm going to clean up. I really only do a very, very light sanding over there because the syringe gives you a very smooth surface. And then I just want to drill a hole for my ear wire. And this hand drill is a wonderful tool. I wouldn't live without it in my studio. It's pin vise with, and you put the drill bit in the front. But what I really love about it is that all the extra drills store in the back. And that's fantastic because if you're like me, you lose stuff all the time. And this way you never lose your drill bit. And I'm just going to start with a fine bit. And I'm going to drill straight down. Now you don't want to try to punch through the clay, you want to let the drill do the work, and I think the camera can pick up the little strings of clay coming out. That's telling you that it's working. And I think I'm through. Yep, I'm all the way through. I'll show you. Okay, and now I'm going to change the bit out. It's very quick to do that, to a more medium-sized bit because I need a slightly larger hole to accommodate my ear wire. And I prefer to start with a finer hole and then widen it rather than start with the bigger drill bit right away because I think that's safer. You're less likely to compromise your piece that way. So it only takes a moment to change the bit. Actually, in my studio, I have two of these, and I have one set up with a fine bit and one set up with a medium bit, so I don't have to keep changing them. But you can certainly get by with just one tool. And you see how quickly that second one goes through because the hole's already there for you. So there's one earring. I'll do the other earring, and we'll fire them, and we'll show you what they look like when they're finished. Okay, another thing that the syringe is excellent for is repair work, filling in gaps, joining pieces together. And here's an example of what I would use the fine tip for. I made this stone, I made this bezel using the stone setting templates, the bezel templates. But when I went to cut away the excess clay, I inadvertently gouged the side of it. Now, I don't want to have to sand this so thin to get rid of this gouge. So I'm going to use the fine tip syringe to fill it in. I'm going to just take my brush and dampen the area where I'm going to make the repair. I'm going to take my syringe with the fine tip on it, use the wick away to dab away the excess moisture, and I'm just going to squeeze enough syringe in there to fill that gap. And now I'm just going to pat that in and lightly smooth. Now this will go back in the dehydrator if you use a dehydrator or whatever drying apparatus you use, probably for like 2 minutes. It doesn't need a lot because it's just on the surface, and I'll very lightly sand that and it'll be ready to use in my design. So here we have the finished bezel, and you can see how smooth and even it looks. So that fine syringe did a great job repairing it. Here we have the earrings and the pendant. And you can see how nicely they look when they're finished. These I chose to patina. And here we have the other earrings that we made using the heavy tip and the fine tip. I chose to leave these shiny with no patina, but you could easily patina them as well. I hope you have fun exploring the many ways you can use syringe to enhance your designs and create new ones.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.